Welcome, welcome, welcome to another Embrace Your Life chat where the focus is to heighten celebrations and lessen sorrows through a positive focus. I am Carol C.C. Miller, your positive life strategist, peace activator, and global hugger. And as you can tell, I have a guest today, and I will introduce her in a moment. I'm excited to have her here with us for a brief conversation. We need to get out of here in 30 minutes because she's a busy lady. What can I tell you? So we will get into the discussion very quickly. I'm in Chicago. Let me know in comments where you're joining us from. Laura is someplace in Florida, I believe, but we'll get into that as well. A couple things that I like to go over before our conversations for people to understand my work, if you're new to it, is I'm not an absolutist. I'm not a big fan of the words always, never, right, wrong, good or bad. Excuse me, there's 7 billion people on this planet. I can't begin to say what is always right for 7 billion people or never right for 7 billion people. So I work on a scale, 0 being always negative, 100 being always positive. My personal work is to be in the 80 to 100% of the time, positive, loving, kind, compassionate, and peaceful. That means fear visits me, frustration, disappointment, unworthiness, all of those things visit me. But with my daily practices and tools, they visit, they don't move in and live with me. Second thing, I'm a coach. I love supporting people and living their best life. I'm not a counselor nor a therapist. And for some people to live your best life requires, or I shouldn't say requires, but getting counseling or therapy may be the best way for you to move forward into living your best life. So with that covered, today's topic is about compassion and finding compassion in the hard places. And my guess, we're going to be using this as an example. If you watched the Oscars and the incident with Will Smith and Chris Rock, we're not here to judge it, make a decision on if it's good, bad, right, or wrong, but to use it as a teachable moment moving forward and what we saw in it. And I also would like to say before introducing Laura, there's also a racial aspect to this that I cannot cover, nor Laura can cover. We are white women. So we're just going to talk about it from our perspective of being able to come from a space of compassion. So my guest today is Laura Duksta. She is a best-selling author. I cannot believe, Laura, that your hug book, I think I got it for my niece. I actually don't have a copy of it.
Well,
So I got this for her and the hug book, but I need to get a hug book for myself.
yeah,
So
of
she
course.
is an inspirational speaker, New York Times bestselling author. Her first book, I Love You More, has sold nearly 1 million copies in 7 languages. And she's got a good big heart that she shares love wherever she goes. So Laura, I saw your post after the Oscar comment. We just started talking and regarding Jada's alopecia. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes,
So
yep.
if you'd like to just share a little bit about who you are and how this conversation even got started.
Yeah. So, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Carol. So much of who you are and what you share and how you share it is just so in alignment with my heart and how I see things. And even some of the notes that I made for this conversation, I just don't believe that the world is black and white. And one thing that I thought about recently is, once we embrace that, and I love the title of your talk here, your chat, once we embrace that the world isn't black and white, maybe it won't appear gray, it'll appear rainbow, right? And
I
like
love
in
that.
full living color when we realize that, we don't need to take sides and be so opinionated and such strong stances. I have alopecia and I've had alopecia areata, and there's different levels and versions of it. And some people really like to say it correctly. There's alopecia universalis and totalis, meaning that you've either lost only the hair on your head or patches of hair. And then universalis means universally all over your body. I'll say personally from me, those distinctions and things haven't been as important as I lost my hair when I was 10, 11 years old. It started in small patches, and then going into 6th grade, I became a 6th grader with a really bad comb over. I had long brown wavy hair and I had all these bald patches, and I was just trying to hide the patches. Finally, we got a diagnosis, because it's not so people aren't so familiar with it, including doctors back then, several years ago when I was that age. So you had to go from like doctor to doctor in order to get a diagnosis. And then we were finally at Boston Children's Hospital, and the doctor said, it's alopecia. There's nothing we can do. Get a wig, and you don't need to tell anybody. And my mom was a kindergarten teacher, and she just knew that was the worst advice. But I was 11, and I was in a challenging situation at home. My father was a raging alcoholic at the time, and getting a wig and not telling anybody felt like what I needed to do. I thought that there was something wrong with me. That's how I felt. And so I thought that the most important thing to do would be to try to be like everybody else. So, my experience with it was I got wigs. I didn't look at myself in a mirror without a wig on for 10 years, from the time that I was 11 till the time that I was 21. And it was still 9 years after that I finally took the wig off and was at a point where I could embrace being myself and who I am. And, and now have a much different experience. Alopecia affects like at least 5 million people, maybe more. I should have had those statistics in the US. Again, it's something that doesn't consume who I am. It's not who I am. It's part of my experience. But I've really always, even before considering myself a New York Times bestselling author, I don't have one of my cards here with me, but on my card it says Ambassador of Love. That's who I am. Yeah. I think that's who a lot of us are, whether we've embraced it yet or not. That like things like that are really truly who we are and what we're here for.
Yeah, we're seeking it if we're not aware that we have it. So
yeah. Which this was a question I wanted to pose to you and to everyone. Part of my mission, and I published my book, I Love You More, after it was an answer to a prayer. It poured through me one night when my sister was going through a hard time in her then marriage and was pregnant with her second child. I was praying for my sister. I was like, oh, this is strange. I don't really pray like this. The idea poured through me, and it was, very interesting. And then we sent it to print on September 10th, 2001.
Wow.
So after that, I came to believe that the book was written so that we all know, especially our children, that no matter what's going on in our lives or in the world around us, how truly loved we are. And that's a part of my new book, which is going to be, I believe, no matter what, you are loved. No matter what others say or do, no matter what's going on in your world, in your life, or in the world around you, know that you are loved. How do we make that? How do we go? I've done a lot of work at Landmark, and one of their statements is the knowing of which makes no difference. We know a lot of things, and that's a step in the right direction. Yeah. But how do we move from knowing something to actually having that be our experience?
Oh, so that's a question for me, huh?
It's a question for all of us, right?
Deanna, I'm seeing some people who are joining us here. What are your ideas on that? I'm not sure that I know the answer to it, because that knowing, it's an internal, like, it's just there sometimes. Like, there's the knowing that I don't even know how I got to know it, but it's just who I am, if that makes sense. There's the knowing of educating yourself and learning different perspectives. That is certainly at play. There is the pause to think it through and feel it through before reacting to something, or instead of to be able to respond rather than to react. So I don't know if those are the right answers for this question, but I'm going to have to think about that one.
Yeah. I love that. And, and when you asked if I wanted to be on, I was like, yep, but let's make sure from the beginning that, I don't have all the answers. We don't have the answers. That's what we're here for, right? We're here to have conversations. And I think that's what matters. And one of the last things that you just said is the difference between responding and reacting. And, I think that there's so many of us that wish that, maybe that's a question that we can ask ourselves. What would love do? What would love do in this situation? And I believe in my heart that Will really is and really desires to be an ambassador of love. And he knows that that's not the reaction that he had that evening, Sunday night, was not the proper response. It's not what love would do.
Well, and I think that that's what's important. That's why I always talk about, I just used a, always. I catch myself every time I say it now. It's like, darn it. But it's really, for me, it is about the majority of the time, because we do have reactions and something hits us different than normal. But because it's daily practices, it's less likely. It sounds like there's a history between those two gentlemen, regardless of what took place. I think for me, the important thing of witnessing it was all the extra reaction from people who don't know either person, don't know the situation. And well, I would never do that. I honestly can't imagine ever doing that. Certainly I can't imagine it. I can't say that I would never do it. That's why I don't like always or never words. But it's really, for me, it's just about pausing and seeing how can we come from it from a place of compassion rather than condemnation.
Yeah.
And just because somebody's rich or famous does not mean that they don't have a heart and feel things too. So I like the what would love do? And I think for me, a lot of people think love or kindness, because that's what the word I usually use, is that it's a doormat. Like, but love and kindness are both strong and both formidable. It's just how do you present yourself, rather than love doesn't show up and blame, shame, and complain. Love shows up as solutions. Love shows up with compassion. Love doesn't say, oh, well, I love you and whatever you did is okay now. There's still consequences to whatever good or bad behavior. But it's about for me, my biggest question I ask myself every day is, who do I want to be and how do I want to show up? And I do want a more loving world, a kinder world, a more compassionate. So I know that I need to be that to create that.
Yeah. And thank you for being that, because you are a loud voice for kindness and compassion and focusing on what we want in the world.
Yeah.
And, and so, like, one, I'm a big believer that conversations matter, and, and like taking this as a teachable moment, taking, I know I know you're aware that a young girl with alopecia committed suicide less than 2 weeks ago, I think,
12, wasn't
in
she?
Indiana.
12?
She was 12 years old. She was in middle school. She was being relentlessly bullied, including like ripping her wig off and smacking her upside the head. And she decided that it was going to be better to not be here than to put up with that. There's so many things, right, to share about that. One, I love the awareness that we're beginning to have, but it's not not everybody knows it, and not everybody in middle school knows it, or elementary school, and adults aren't aware of it, that we have thinking, but we're not our thinking, and that we don't have to react to our thinking. And that's odd. Like, I have thoughts and they're not mine. I have thoughts that come from consciousness, from culture, from the news, from video games, from what, others say and do, but they're not actually who I am. Like, that's an odd concept for a lot of people. And, I have a mindfulness program that we're bringing into middle schools, and the kids are in awe, and the teachers, when they learn that. And they're like, I don't have to hit him when I have the thought to hit him, or I have another way to, I have a choice, not just what I think, of what to do or say. And so, conversations like that are so important to get into our schools, to get into our families. And, there's parents who don't want conversations like that to be had in schools, but they don't know how to have them at home. So, again, there's not an easy answer. It's not black and white. I love how you put that. It's, it's not a, there is a way to do this. We don't know what the way is to do this. So.
Yeah. And I don't know if you're familiar with his work or not, but he's a big mentor of mine. I've never personally met him, but Brian Stevenson, he is a civil rights lawyer. And for 30 years, he's done work in our jail system. And I've heard him say many times that he's met people in jail who absolutely need to be there. They've done horrific things. And yet, when he knew their backstory, he could have mercy. He could have compassion for them. Didn't mean he was going to spring them out of jail, but he could see what led them to that. So, if we're able to take that pause and just see behind the action and maybe have a little bit of compassion for that. And again, it's for me, it goes back to what can I do to create more love in the world? What can I do to create more compassion in the world? And one of them, I think, is to show that love, kindness, and compassion are not doormats. It's just about how do you show up to share that with other people.
Yeah, I love that. I love Brian. And that's like another bigger conversation, like, so here are these people and they're in jail and they've done things that's possibly the best place for them. And are we, focusing on rehabilitation and healing the trauma and stress?
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's the same thing. Like, so let's just bring it back to the schools, bring it back to the middle school, bring it back to the elementary school. When somebody is bullying, like, we're aware of this now, they probably have issues are going on at home. There's probably something else behind their actions. And there's different layers to it and different sides to it. It's not a black and white thing. So, yeah. So, when they get punished, what is that punishment? Or they get, I don't even want to call it punishment, because I don't think that that's what it should be. It's like there should be consequence, and that consequence should be inside of the world of making better choices. So, like, I was thinking about this today, like, should they, have a couple of hours of community service work? Well, depending on what they did in the cafeteria, helping, or with the custodian, and not like those are bad things, but like cleaning up the school, helping cleaning up the community, not just somebody that's going to write, sign off on a couple of community service hours, because that happens a lot, but something that they're actually doing so that they're making their community and they're understanding the importance and the value of doing something for somebody. Because when we're in service to others, that is a game changer for a lot of people.
And using it as a learning tool. And I don't know what your thoughts about this are, but for me, because obviously bullying, I mean, now we have bullying in our politics. So for me, we've identified the bully. They're mean, horrible people, whether they're 10 or 50. And now we bully them because they're a bully. So it's really just perpetuating it. And it reminds me to go back to, who do I want to show up as and who do I want to be? I don't want to be a bully. I don't want to make people feel less than, to make me feel more than. So, and I do wonder, and here's my question for you. I kind of feel like that sometimes we bully the bully or make them an awful person in order to show we could never do that. They're a monster for whatever they've done. And it kind of separates them from being a human. So I can't associate with that person because they're not. They're a monster for their awful thing that they've done, whether in word or action. But I think that if we were able to see hearts, again, there's consequences. I don't remotely want to say that you can do something horrible and I'm just going to say, oh, that's okay, honey, that, you're good. But it's about seeing the hearts of those people who are hurting.
Yeah. And I think, like, I always want us to be really mindful of our words and how we put things out there. Right. So, and we do this a lot, but like, they're not horrible. They're not a bully, right? They did actions. They did things that are that, that were bullying. Their actions were bullyish. I don't know what the right word is for it, right? But they are not that.
Yeah.
I actually really believe at the heart of all of us, we are love. And we have darkness and shadow and hurt and pain and trauma and stress that has us act in certain ways. And it's the same, we have actions that we do that, again, just, need consequences, but we are not that. And maybe and that's part of, planting those seeds in the young hearts to let them know that who they are is love, and who that person sitting beside them is love, and their parents are love. And people make bad choices. People act and say things and do things that are not expressions of love or kindness or compassion. But underneath that, if we can get to that, that's that space and awareness of love that lives and dwells there. So I think it's important to, because somebody bullies in one situation, and then, in another situation has different choices and actions. And so one of my mentors for years has been John DeMartini, and his work it takes it to another level of experience. He says that, and other people say this too, but there's nothing in someone that you can see that you don't own, right?
Yeah.
So if you're seeing somebody who's putting somebody down or making bad choices, there's instances where you have done the same, or other people have perceived you in that same way.
Yeah.
That's a big conversation to have. There's another a small thing. It's not a small thing, but I know we don't have that much time, but I want to touch on it. And this is really challenging when it's when you bring this conversation to young people, because it's not a conversation that you can really have with a young person. But what I want to say for myself and for adults to know, that when I thought that there was something wrong with me, when I thought that I wasn't going to have any friends, that I'd never be able to do the things that I wanted to do, that I was ugly, that like a monster lived under that wig. And it's hard to understand how depressed, and I suffered from addictions. I was just really miserable and held my shoulders really low and my head down. And it's not who I am today, thankfully. But
everything hits harder as a child anyway. So
Yeah.
those emotions are real, even if they're not necessarily valid. Like, you are all of those things, but at that moment, you don't feel that.
Yeah. What's your so what I wanted to share about that is that when I thought those things, that's how the world showed up. When I got that was a story that I was telling myself, and that wasn't true. And one of the exercises that I did that helped me see that was to make up different stories, just absurd stories. Like, oh, I'm an alien from another planet that needed to come in disguise, incognito, before I was able to shed and show my real self. I mean, sometimes I kind of think that's true, but, and then, but that was a story too, as well as I'm never going to be able to be on stage. I'll never be able to do the things that I liked. I'm never going to have any friends. Kind of funny that I just went through and had to delete some friends because I'm at my friend limit on Facebook. And another recent thing that I realized is I tried out for cheerleading when I was in 9th grade. I was the least likely person to ever be able to make the cheer squad. It was just not who I was. I was, like I said, I was depressed, and I wore a wig that didn't stay on. And but now when I go into schools, I teach them my signature cheers, the I Am a Genius cheer and the I Shine cheer. And I'm like, holy moly, here I am. I'm head cheerleader. Not only am I, so I guess just to get back to my point was when I thought there was something wrong with me, the world showed up like that. So I think that that's something for adults, for ourselves, we can look at that. And then we can look at that and we can do our best to know that our children are dealing with situations, and how can we make sure within those situations that they still have healthy self-esteem and self-awareness and worth. And there's there's organizations like the Children's Alopecia Project, if people are aware of it, which is a wonderful organization, which says, like, our kids have this, so we're not worried about what we're going to do to fix it and solve it and heal it. If that happens, great. But right now they're dealing with it. So how are we going to raise, happy, healthy, compassionate children? And it's a program that's for the child with alopecia, as well as the parents and the siblings. And that's so important. And that's part of the work that I do when I go into schools. I love going into a school with a child with alopecia, but whether there is or isn't. I love visiting schools, and when there is, I get to, I regardless of whether there is or not, I share what alopecia is, what it isn't, and that it affects the siblings, and the family and the friends. And I think that that's part of what we saw on Sunday night. We haven't been living with, Will and Jada and their family to see the roller coaster of emotions that a condition like this can cause for the entire family. And, he reacted versus responding.
Well, exactly. And I love that because it was a reaction rather than a response. And I've seen people say, well, Jada said how she's comfortable with it. I can tell you, I don't have alopecia, but I'm 4'10". I've had challenges with my height all my life. And I can tell you, oh, I'm fine with it. And most of the time now I am, but there are still moments that somebody can say something to me that hits me as the 8-year-old getting teased about being short. So somebody can say they're fine and doesn't mean necessarily they are fine with it. And it really doesn't matter on how it's really, for me, it goes back to who do I want to be today? Yeah. So I know you only have a couple minutes left. What would you like to as far as responding rather than react, and not just to this, but anything that brings out the how dare they do this? And let me tell you, as I say every time I'm on here, these are things I practice. I can see something on social media that puts me into a how dare they do that, and then I go into I don't want to feed that. I don't want to give that energy to grow. I'm going to either not respond at all, or I'm going to respond with compassion. But what are ways that you know of or think about to build your compassion muscles?
Yeah. We've connected years ago through a community that I helped to found with Lilu Masay and co-creating our reality. And now she's really done extraordinary things with that. And I remember us doing it, Lilu and I doing an interview together and thinking, I can say a lot of things. And I think that conversations are so important. Talk it out. And they're doing community meetings at the beginning of the days in schools, in some places in classrooms. I think that's a priceless tool to give young people an opportunity to share what's going on in their lives. And so, bring that to the dinner table as well. I love the idea of I don't like that word,
another word sensitive person like me. I love it.
I know I'm so word sensitive. I don't like the word favorite either. No, but but I remember saying to Lilu, and I want to actually just take a moment to share these. I said to Lilu, I can say a lot of things, and I think sometimes I say things that have value, but I've not said anything that says it better than my books do. And my books are about love, connection, and appreciation for ourselves, one another, and the world. And so I Love You More. Oh, you had that book. I don't have a copy of it out here. Okay. I Love You More. I have the I'll Hug You More, which of course we have to get you a copy of this, Carol.
I don't have one. That was the totally when I was.
My books are done in this fun flip format too, where they start from both sides and read to the middle. So we say love, they really never end. They represent the giving and receiving of love. I have You Are a Gift to the World, and the world is a gift to you. This book isn't available right now in print, but I have it set up as a free download on my website. And this is a great conversation starter. People sign up for my newsletter, they get a free download. And then to keep in mind that I'm working on this new one, no matter what, you are loved. And it really comes from the voice of the children. And we're using pictures of real children from around the world. And so, we could start there too. There's books like Wonder that are wonderful. There's books like Just Mercy that are conversation starters. And there's I just found out that a young cousin who's in high school, Just Mercy was required reading for their school. And I was like, oh, yes.
Yay.
So conversation starters. So let's keep the conversation going, right?
Yeah, I think that's so important, is to converse about it rather than just immediately assume we know what another person is going through. And even in conversation, it doesn't mean, I mean, I think you and I would probably agree on the majority of things, but you can have a conversation. It doesn't mean you have to agree with the other person, but you are willing to listen to and see where they're coming from. So I definitely think conversation is the way to go about things. I shared Laura's "How do you publish a children's book," Stacia. I know Laura has to go, so maybe another conversation on that. I know a person, Shanda Trofe, I just posted on my personal page, who does publishing, so that might be an avenue too. But
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me. Please come back again.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay on to say goodbye to everybody, but I'm going to let you go.
Okay.
And I love you more.
Thank you for having me. I love you.
Bye.
I love you all. Take care. Bye.
So let me come in here to comments and see where everybody is joining from. Hi, Shamey. I hope I am saying that right. Kate, hello from Ireland. And Stacia, good to see you here. Wilbur, hello. Kathy. We have India in the house. I know there's several people here from the U.S. Kate, I was bullied at school for 10 years, but now I've come out the other side as a resilient adult. Beautiful, and know that not everyone has that, has been able to be resilient about it. So I'm so glad that you were able to find your way out of that. I don't see any other questions. Stacia, what are the steps? Albuquerque, New Mexico. Stacia, can you tell me what are the steps, what that question's to? Because I don't know. Maybe it's about finding compassion. Let me know what your what are the steps are, and I will do what I can for you on that. And I know I missed somebody else's comment. Sheena, how do you get what, Sheena? Let me know what you're looking for to get, and I will hopefully have an answer for you on that. If I don't see Stacey's question here, I will come back later and look at comments. Remember, I am here Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays to hopefully help heighten celebrations and lessen sorrows through a positive focus. Usually it's just me. Sometimes, like today, I have guests on who are also here to help heighten celebrations and lessen sorrows through a positive focus. I will be back tomorrow. I'm not sure what my topic is yet. I have several from the community from before, so it'll probably be one of those. But if you have anything that you would like me to bring a little bit more love, kindness, compassion, and peace to the conversation, share it in comments, and I will check back later on that. Again, we are a community here. I love that people are here from all around the world, even though you may only see me. Everyone here that is commenting and sharing their perspective, I greatly appreciate it. I don't see any more questions. And if I missed anybody, sometimes I don't see the comments until after I look back later. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Choose kindness, compassion, peace, and love to yourself, to those around you. Take a pause, respond rather than react, and know that we're all, the vast majority of us, I'm not going to say all, the vast majority of us are trying to do the best we can with where we're at, with what we're given, to move forward with a little bit more love in our hearts. So have a wonderful day. We will talk soon tomorrow. And remember, you matter. You matter to me. You matter to the world. And most importantly, you matter to you. We'll talk soon. So long for now.